Happy Friday, Miami. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of Miami Condo Investing Club. If you are watching this podcast live, that means that it's Friday. It's the end of the week, and you're ready to talk South Florida real estate. Myself, as well as my co-host, Daniel Hernandez from Compass Real Estate, his office over in Coconut Grove. He does single family as well as condos. We're going to give you a perspective from two locals on the ground. I tend to lean bearish. Daniel's a little bit more optimistic than me, but we're going to give you plenty of things to think about and let you decide who's right, who's wrong, and where this market's going. What's up, Daniel?
What's up, Peter? Happy Friday. We're almost done with August. Happy anniversary. It was Hurricane Andrew's anniversary 23 years ago now, just last week. But we're not talking about hurricanes today. We're talking about real estate. So welcome everybody who is watching. As Peter mentioned, my name is Daniel Hernandez. I'm a realtor with Compass, and this is Buy, Sell, Hold. So what is Buy, Sell, Hold? No nonsense, South Florida real estate talk show. We select 5 topics every week. We really like to hone in on there. Peter's bringing a lot of data to the table. Peter loves his data. And with each topic, we're going to allocate about 7 minutes to each one. If we go a little bit over, that's okay, because we have a whole hour. You got us for a whole hour, maybe a little over. Typically, we're at 4:05, I like to say, but this is Miami time. It is 4:38 on August 29th, 2025. And so with the first topic, Peter, let's just jump into it. Miami's reputation as a scam city, is that costing us real money? So, and let me give a little context. The reason why we bring this up is, well, we read quite a bit, and you don't really have to read the Carl Hiaasen novels to get a taste of Miami. All you have to do is open the Miami Herald or your favorite tabloid. Not Miami Herald, not a tabloid, but what is a tabloid? I don't want to give anybody a bad name, like journalistic representation. I was going to say The Real Deal, but The Real Deal isn't a tabloid, it's a trade. The New Times is a free publication. But the article you sent me, I think, was from the Miami Herald, was it not?
No, it was coming out of Local 10, which used to be the ABC affiliate. It is the beginning of August. They dropped the ABC affiliate, and now they're just broadcasting live and publishing stories about South Florida with no affiliate. So they're flying solo.
The
It's
flying
actually an
solos. So
experiment.
what is the headline that you sent me?
Yeah, and this is a great headline. Headline: Police said duo bilked Miami Beach homeowner out of $650,000 over Italian millwork that was never completed, never done.
What I
Daniel,
found
here's
was interesting about this is in the article, it says the 3 payments that they milked this guy for. And if anyone's done any work on anything here, even like gardener work, the amount of the initial payment, so it was 3 payments they milked this guy for. They talked him into a $500,000 deposit on construction work. Don't anybody watching, don't do that. Don't pay any contractor $500,000 for anything unless it's part of a $10 million contract and that's just a small deposit. But I mean, to people you don't know, I mean, I don't want to say, sucker born every day, but
Well, Daniel, let me give you some context for this. So, okay, first and foremost, this happened back in 2023. The first payment was 515 grand, October the 25th, 2023, 77,350 bucks, November of 2023. And just for kicks, $61,300 a month later, December of 2023. So if you go back in time, that was a time when supply was of product was very challenging to get your hands on. If you were a buyer, there were not enough suppliers, and suppliers had the opportunity to basically charge whatever they wanted. We all remember it was like supply chain. I remember going to take a look
who's
at
got the
maybe
lumber?
yeah, exactly. Who's got the lumber? I took a look at buying a couch, and they told me if I paid for it today, it would be 9 months before it actually got shipped over from China, just to kind of give you context. But to your point, you don't trust contractors. Contractors are fly by night, especially when you have a situation where everybody wants something and there's not enough workers.
I
And
had
that's
a
basically
bathroom in my house. I contract a bathroom, and not a big bathroom, small bathroom. It took 10 weeks. 10 weeks for, I don't know, what is it, like 150 square foot bathroom? I mean, And yeah, that was at the height of it. That was what, summer of 2022. And your hands are kind of tied because it's like, well, who's going to show up to do the work? And when everybody's riding high, all these contractors they're not taking your job, they're taking your job and 8 others at the same time because they've lived through this before. We're a boom and bust town. When things are hot, I'm going to take all the work I can because when things bust, I might not be working for months.
It's so true. It's 100% true. This is kind of an interesting story. First and foremost, the name of the company, according to the Channel 10, WPLG, name of the company is called Elite Homes. They're located over on 151st in Biscayne Boulevard, up there in the North Miami area. And 2 people actually got arrested as a result of this. One of them was called Christina Maestrenko, 25. Her arrest report says she's originally from Russia, but she's living now in Sunny Isles Beach, as well as her co-conspirator, allegedly, William Richmond, 51. Basically, they got hit with defraud and grand theft of more than 100 grand. More than 100 grand, dude, we're talking 6x on this particular situation. But Daniel, here's sort of the interesting thing. You parachute in from out of town. Maybe you came from New York, California. You bought your dream place. The pandemic's going on. You want to get it renovated. You're willing to pay whatever it's going to take and cost. So you go ahead and you hire some contractor. You don't really have a way to vet them one way or another. So they ask you for a big deposit. You don't know necessarily what the rules of engagement are. You're assuming these contractors are going to live up to their word because they're licensed in theory. And the reality is a lot of them don't. A lot of them will basically go through. They'll do some of the work. And what I have found is typically that last 10 to 20%, they're going to bail on. You still owe them one last payment, but that's hard stuff.
Awful.
Easy stuff was already
done.
Could
not be more right.
Yeah, the last 20% are like, dude, this is where I really got to do something special. Screw the last 20%. I'm just going to bail. I'm going to go elsewhere. And now you got to find somebody to plug in the gap and fill it. In fact, some of my buddies had a company. What they did was the last 20%. If you were on a deadline and you
they were the closers.
They were they were the cleanup people. They were the closers, and they did it for government jobs. So these contractors would be in over their head. They had all kind of penalties they were facing. They'd hire my buddies. My buddies go in there. They bust their ass for 30 or 60 days. They'd be working nonstop, but they would make a bundle because the last 20%, you always get screwed on. That's been my experience in South Florida from contractors because it's not worth their time, the contractors.
According to the Federal Trade Commission, I poked around a little bit. So according to the Federal Trade Commission, Florida leads the nation in overall fraud losses, with South Florida at the center of it, topping all other U.S. regions for the number of reported fraud cases and victim losses. Real estate investment and rental scams are among the leading fraud types in the state, because that's what we do. We do real estate. And South Florida sees rampant wire fraud, title fraud, and fake rental schemes. In 2025, as many as 43% of renters nationwide encountered fraudulent listings, but this is a Miami area specialty.
Yes, it is. Specialty contractors, a lot of them will roll in, especially after a storm or when there's really high demand. You mentioned Hurricane Andrew, which occurred back in 1992. If you hear some of the war stories that came out of that, where contractors basically threw all the stuff in the back of a pickup truck, drove south, came down here, promised all kinds of stuff, took deposits, and then basically did some of the work and typically pissed off. And, Daniel, here's the part I don't really get. If you hire a contractor to do some work for you and you don't pay them, they have the ability to lien your property. I'm not an attorney, check with your attorney, but they can file what's called a mechanic's lien for work that was not paid for. What the hell do you do if you were an actual consumer and you hire somebody and you get hustled? What are you going to do? Most times, if you call the cops are like, it's not really enough money.
And a lot of times the cops are going to
say,
you file a police report. And so you go to file a police report and you start going through the process. And one of the steps in this process is, all right, well, send me their license number. And you go there, what? Oh, and then you think about it, and it's awful to get scammed. It's awful to get scammed, and nobody wants to talk about getting scammed because it's a reflection of their own character judgment. But if you've moved down here and you don't know anybody and you got to get this work done and you just hire somebody because they're going to show up, shit, a lot of these guys aren't even licensed, and so if and when they do mess it all up, there's no recourse other than, these guys weren't licensed. How did you not ask for their license number? And then, God forbid, somebody falls on your property.
But a buddy of mine used to do do slick coating of ceilings. So a lot of times when you go in an old condo, you go in an old building, they take this what they call popcorn. And they shoot the popcorn
Yeah,
up
the
on top.
popcorn
It's a real
ceiling.
quick way. Yeah, yeah. So but what my buddy did was slick coating. So they would remove the popcorn and they would smooth it all out so it looked like it was nice and smooth, like a baby's behind, if you will. So he would do that. So one time he needed to get some workers. So pulls the usual. He goes out to the Home Depot, gets some guy, takes him up. He says they're working an hour, 2 hours. The guy starts climbing up a ladder, falls down, threatens to sue the homeowner as well as my buddy who's doing the slick coating. My buddy gives him $100, tells him he's going to kick his ass, and drops him back off at Home Depot and said, "You want to sue me, but I'm going to hunt you down." This is the type of hustle we're talking about. So if you are hiring a contractor, sometimes it's worth more to pay a premium and go with a legitimate company that has all the licensing and you get all the permits rather than running one of these games, because chances are in the end, the contractor always wins. It's kind of like a tow truck driver. But tow truck driver always wins.
Yeah, if you get your car towed, you're paying. You're paying. It doesn't matter if you're right or you're wrong. You want your car back, you got to pay. And this is part of a larger theme, right? Because so much of Miami is new. The skyscrapers are new, the new hotels, the new bars. But this has been happening in South Florida. South Florida is being the fart capital of the United States. This is going back 100 years. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a lack of institutional knowledge. I mean, back in the day, you had newspapers. Newspapers used to report this stuff, and you had journalists who were around for quite some time. They would remember things. Now we're such a transient community. I always say, if somebody hasn't been here at least 3 years, I don't know that they're going to stay. And here's my logic. First year, you party like a rock star. Second year, you start to get serious. By the third year, if you haven't moved out of the party scene and started focusing on being, let's say, responsible, chances are you're going home to rehab or you're going to jail. So it's one of the, so if you make it through 3 years, you're legit. It's kind of like hazing, if you will, initiation into any kind of organization. So I think because the turnover is so quick, nobody has that institutional knowledge. And that's what gives developers and realtors and everybody else the ability to tell a story, because there's no one there to push back on them, especially now with no journalists. Much less. Right. Yeah, much less that are out there. And that's basically the key to it. You got to be able to spin a yarn and hope you can grab the cash and bail before anybody figures out. Which, Daniel, my question to you is, if these alleged fraudsters, according to WPLG, if they actually ran a $650,000 hustle and they got over $500,000 on the first hit,
how many times?
Why stick around?
Well, because
why stick around?
This is the one they got caught with. There were 6 other scams going on. You have a scammer. Listen, a scammer isn't born overnight. If you got to the 6-figure of scams, that means that they've probably been doing this for 5, 6 years, 10 years. And then, you work up from the $100 scam to the $1,000 scam, $10,000 scam. I mean, to scam somebody for $500,000, like the cojones, right? So you've made it this far without getting caught. And then it starts getting to your head. You start operating with impunity. And that's when it gets really dangerous, because you don't think you're actually going to get caught. And then you couple that with the what's the phrase that Alan Greenspan used to use? Irrational exuberance. Irrational exuberance. So Alan Greenspan, we are the lifeblood of irrational exuberance. You look up irrational exuberance in the encyclopedia, you should have a map of South Florida. So you have people coming down here and spending money that A, they might not have, B, buying things that they don't need. And we have plenty of scammers to deliver or not deliver and charge them for it for these things. You see it with it happens every week with the yacht charters. The bait and switch. Oh, I'm going to rent an 80-foot yacht for the weekend, and a 30-foot boat shows up or doesn't show up at all.
And then you got all these people renting out homes they don't own. They're collecting lease deposits for apartments they don't even actually own. You always hear those stories. You also hear the stories about the guys wear their watch. They go and drop $1 million on a watch. They go to 11 or they go to some nightclub. Next thing you know, they think that they are good looking because 2 women are chatting them up, and they're throwing back.
And then they wake up with stitches where their kidneys are, and there's no watch either. I'm kidding.
So
I don't think we've had organ theft here yet. But hey, if things get desperate enough, so we got to move on to the next topic, though. So Miami's reputation as scam city hurting our reputation and our pockets, I'm a buy on that statement.
I'm a
True.
pound the table buy without question.
And so if you've been following us for the last few weeks, Peter and I, we disagree on things. We're friends, but we have a friendly discourse. And so when we were to buy, sell, hold, well, oftentimes we couldn't both buy on the same thing or sell on the same thing. And it wouldn't reflect on the screen for our wonderful viewers. Well, with technology as it is today, I was able to give Peter his own buy, sell, hold, and myself, Daniel Hernandez, has his own buy, sell, hold. But we did agree, and we are both a buy on topic number one on our rundown today. So moving along, Miami office foreclosures, and you also supplied this bit of an article. And Miami office foreclosures, I think the article you sent me was about an office building in Wynwood called Wynwood Gateway that they did not overcome their bankruptcy proceedings, right? That company's going bankrupt.
So what it was is there was this whole concept during the pandemic again that there was going to be tremendous demand for everybody moving to Miami, moving to South Florida, whether it was for crypto, it was technology, it was work from home. So developers put up an office tower right there on 29th in Miami Avenue, across the street from Midtown, and basically on the right on the western boundary, if you will, of the Wynwood area. So they go ahead, they build this office tower, and it's everything that anybody would ever want, and they can't lease it. Yeah, they can't lease it. So all of everything they were told about work from home and you need luxury office space and Wynwood is so hot and blah, 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 blah. It goes sideways. It goes 100% sideways. And ultimately, the building runs into foreclosure and now it has a new owner. I don't want to take a shot guessing what the loss was on this particular property, but this is a perfect example of somebody coming in, parachuting in, thinking they know more than everybody else. They're going to apply their school of thought or from back home into this area, and they're going to crap out.
And they get burned.
Always happens. Yeah, it's inevitable. This is the hustle. This is the way it plays out over and over and over in Miami. It's just something that is normal. So then the question becomes, so what's really up with the office space? I got a buddy who does office space. He's a listing agent. Well, and he says office is strong, but I don't know if I believe that or not.
It's the same as we talk about the residential market. And I'm not a commercial broker. Peter also does condos. We just get what we can from the trades. The thing about commercial is that there's not public record reflecting unless you're talking about sales. So with leases, you don't know what's up. You don't know what's what. It's very difficult to do comps. I underwrote an office building a few weeks ago, and it's really hard if you don't have that network of people you can plug into to find out what leased here, what leased there. We all see the headlines and the press releases when a Cushman & Wakefield or CBRE leases this big tall skyscraper in Brickell for $190 a square foot because they want to say, hey, look how awesome we are. We lease this out for $190 a square foot. But when you get into like Class B and Class C office space, like, is it $40? Is it $30? Is it $25? Is it $75? We don't really know until we see a headline like this, where you have a management company that came in from out of town, oftentimes, and they lost their ass. So since 2023, we've seen a 47% spike in office foreclosures over $2 million. So my question to you, and maybe you can correlate this, I don't know if it does correlate with the condo market. Like, is this a trend or is just this run of the mill?
There was a lot of talk right after pandemic broke, if you followed the financial trades, and everybody talked about, is anyone really going to go back to the office? And then remember when people called back to the office, they went 3 days a week, maybe they went to 4 days a week. They never really returned to 5 days a week, at least as far as I know. And there was some question, like, what's going to happen to all this office space? What's going to happen to A, if it's great office space, but B, what's going to happen to the inferior type of office space? So there were all kinds of projections about a major